Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer. Today we've got a replay between Lupi's High Elves and Damon's Beastmen. Traditionally, in my view, this is a pretty tough matchup for the High Elves, so I'm interested to see how this goes. We've got Elithnar here leading the way, 3 units of Reaver Archers, some regular Reavers out to the flanks, 3 Silver Helms with shields in the back, an Ithilmar Chariot, a Mage Lore of Life, and 5 units of Spears. For the Beastmen, we've got Malagor the Dark Omen here, Eye of Morslib, some Ungor Spearman Herd, and Gore Herds with shields. Looks like Korok's Man Rippers, as well as a regular Bestigor Herd, more Gore Herds. Over here we've got Centaurs with throwing axes, Minotaurs with great weapons in the back, and some Poison Warhounds. So, right off the bat, you can see the Eye of Morslib throwing its rocks. Unfortunately, for the Eye of Morslib, there's not a lot of super expensive targets for it to throw its rocks at. Honestly, these Silver Helms are probably going to be a pretty decent option, but yeah, they are a little bit far back at the moment. You can see the Reavers kind of moving into position here. Obviously, 1 unit of Reavers will get eaten alive by 3 Centaurs, just by numbers, so they're trying to stay out in front here. They are going to soak some axes, which is not the best, but it's also not the worst. You know, those axes would definitely be better off going into an armored unit, like, again, the Silver Helms. But we'll see. A nice wide Empire, or sorry, High Elf army. And yeah, the Ithilmar Chariot is an interesting choice. You don't see them used too often, but yeah, the Centaurs, now with more Reavers in the area, are going to have to be a little bit careful, especially with the support of the Reaver Archers here, able to counterfire in a little ways. Meanwhile, Elithnar is steadily poking away at the Eye of Morslib, and you know, you don't really see Elithnar too often, but in my opinion, he's actually a really good pick in matchups where you might face enemy artillery. And of course, the Beastmen do have exceptionally powerful artillery in the Cygor. So having Elithnar here to counterfire the Cygor is quite good. He has extremely long range, and being a very small target himself, can stay out of fire. And yeah, looks like the decoy has been popped up there to fire, and Elithnar himself squeaks away there. Elithnar's bow does do quite a bit of damage, and it's accurate enough to take out things like Warp Lightning cannons, for example. So, again, other factions which you might expect to bring artillery, even like the dwarves, he can be okay against if you were trying to snipe out their cannons or organ guns or things like that. Meanwhile, over here, we've got Silver Helms charging in. They're going to break up this advance a little bit as these Beastmen infantry kind of try and pile in here. That does allow the Reaver Archers to fire in pretty effectively. These chariots are going to have to be careful, though. There are some Minotaurs on station. We've also got some Bestigor Herd as well. Korok's Man Rippers coming in, but they do get a pretty decent charge there. But oh man, here come the Cowboys. They're going to get in here and absolutely wreck these chariots, at least initially. But then the Silver Helms get a nice counter charge in here to block out. All these guys are going to need to pull away pretty soon, but yeah, you can see the throwing axes and the swings from the Minotaurs immediately do a ton of damage to those Silver Helms. They do catch some healing to be able to sit and sustain combat for a little bit longer, but looks like Awakening of the Wood there, going to catch a few of those units. You can see the Minotaurs haven't taken much damage, and unfortunately those Silver Helms did get routed off, so a little bit of a rough engagement for the High Elves. That being said, Elithnar has now switched over to sniping at Malagor the Dark Omen, who has summoned up a Cygor here. The Cygor summon, because of the nerf to summons, doesn't last super long time. You can see it's already, I don't think it's even thrown a single rock yet, and it's already halfway degraded. So, I mean, you may only get like 1 or 2 rock tosses. It's really not worth it, in my view, to use the Cygor in that way. It can be worth it sometimes to use it more as a frontline summon. It does get some decent damage there on those Illyrian Reavers, but at the end of the day, is that really worth it? I don't think so. I mean, it's probably going to disappear pretty quickly. But yeah, High Elf Infantry moving in at this point. You can see the High Elf Spearmen going to get in here. Obviously, they'll do reasonably well against the expensive Minotaurs, who are now pulling back. That does allow the Reaver Archers to fire in. I really like Reaver Archers for this specific purpose. They'll do really good damage to these Minotaurs. And over here, the Silver Helms charging into some Centaurs that had caught out some of the Chariots here. The Chariots have good enough defensive stats in melee that they can kind of sit here and sustain combat for a little bit, but with this Ungor Spears coming in, and now the Centaurs throwing back to throw their axes from a distance, not necessarily going to be great. Over here, it does look like some Silver Helms tried to get up and around to get back at these Cygors, but unfortunately, they were fended off by those Ungor Spearman Herd there. The Eye of Morslib getting relatively low, though. Elithnar has been continuously poking away at those high-value targets. At this point, he's way in the backfield here, just sort of waiting. Looks like he's trying to consolidate some of his forces here. He is able to somewhat win out over here. These Silver Helms are going to consolidate a little bit, or those, Reavers rather. And the Reaver Archers are just about out of ammunition here. They've been able to get some really effective fire on some high-value targets. Now we're going to switch over and get a nice pitched engagement. See if they can't catch out some of these Centaurs here. You see how he uses the decoy to sort of force a little bit of a blob here to interrupt the charge there. And yeah, that does allow a good amount of counterfire in. Of course, the Ungor have basically no armor whatsoever. Or yeah, both the Ungor and the Centaurs. These are Gorherds, rather. My apologies, guys. Here's the Ungors. They are getting charged by chariots and silver helms. Obviously, you know, they do have a bonus versus large, but against this heavy of a presence, they probably won't be able to hold out. Meanwhile, over here, the Reaver Archers charging in. They will beat Centaurs with throwing axes in melee. Granted, there are Spearmen supporting. Looks like the Cygor Rock just smashed out some friendly Beastmen. But yeah, Ungors and Gors supporting here. Those look like the High Elf Spearmen will be able to see off the Ungors, though. And yeah, looks like the Centaurs took a ton of damage. That is forcing a bit of a blob for the Eye of Morrslind to throw into. You can see the other summon Cygor already done for, so yeah. The Cygor summon really not worth it in my eyes with the recent nerfs to summons in terms of the rock throwing. But if you summon them, like, for example, in the backline to proc a terror route and do a ton of armor-piercing infantry damage, it can be more worthwhile. Still, though, I think you're just going to get, if you try to drop, you know, a rear charge with terror, I think Manticore is just going to be better value for that. So yeah, a little bit unfortunate times for the Cygor summon, but that's okay. It has been just ludicrously overpowered in the past, so I'm fine with it being a little bit down in the dumps right now. As for the current situation, Silver Helms and the Ithilmar Chariot getting a very nice hit-and-run charge on those Bestigor herd there. The Bestigor and the Koroks Man-Rippers are still holding out quite well, and despite everything, Beastmen are slightly ahead on the balance of power. Almost all of the High Elf infantry has been dealt with. The Silver Helms are pretty much all gone as well, besides this one unit here that's rolling around with this Death Star of Reavers. We'll see if the High Elves can win mobility and then start to chase off and, chase off these isolated routing units, and also hit the non-routing isolated units with charges just like this, try and clean them up off the battlefield very quickly. Excellent work there. Here come the Minotaurs though, and all the Bestigors, so maybe it was a bit of a trap. Those Silver Helms are not going to be able to pull away in time, it looks like. That being said, Spearmen are piling in as well. A really nice rear charge by the Ithilmar Chariot. Yeah, these Spearmen should be able to do some okay damage against the Minotaurs. Does look like an Earthblood was dropped there. Did catch those Silver Helms as well. A nice explosion from Malagor there to refresh the vigor of all his troops, assuming he is carrying the lore attribute, which he is. Very nice. Yeah, it's a pretty close battle at this point. Things are not looking amazing for the High Elves in terms of the balance of power, but they do have a pretty decisive mobility advantage. There's just so many Reavers here left, and, with enough force, they can potentially win here. The Ithilmar Chariot is going to be very key as well. Basically, the win condition at this point is to try and use the Reavers to potentially surround and gang up on the Minotaurs. Maybe try and snipe out Malagor. Elithnar does have a little bit of ammunition left, so if he can snipe out Malagor, obviously that'll be a huge leadership loss. And then use the Cav to try and get a good surround. Then use the Chariots to clean up the infantry. But you can see the Chariots took a nasty charge from the Minotaurs there. They're going to try and get back out of the infantry here, but yeah, the Cav support just not there, and those Chariots getting absolutely destroyed, so that is going to make taking out these Bestigor herd a little bit tougher. Getting caught out by by the Minotaurs was a bit tough, but still, he has some tools left. That did affect the balance of power pretty significantly, though, so we'll see. There are still plenty of Reavers left. Looks like Elithnar using his last decoy there. And the Cygor has just thrown its last rock as well. Let's see if it makes good contact here. Ooh, a long shot. You can see using that did bring the balance power back a little bit there. This one Ithilmar Chariot may come back from route. As it is, though, Elithnar, the decoy, looks like he's going in melee a little bit there. The Life Mage is still here as well. And Malagor taking some heat from Elithnar himself. Again, if he can take out the leadership for the Beastmen, their leadership will be a lot more. If you can take out the leadership units, obviously the leadership stat will just crumble very quickly. That being said, he's going to have to be careful not to get these Reavers caught out. If they all get killed, then that's pretty much game. He will hit critical army losses most likely, so We'll see. Looks like Lithnar trying to fire in at the best score right now. His projectile will pass through multiple models here, so it's kind of like a bolt thrower almost. You can look at Lithnar almost as like a mobile single model bolt thrower in a way. That's really kind of how he performs, but looks like that last shot went after Malagor. Malagor's really low on HP. He's actually wavering at this point, down to only 600 HP, and here come the Reavers, getting a good charge in here. I say a good charge. They actually got interrupted somewhat by those Spearmen herd, which is a bit unfortunate. Here come the angry Minotaurs as well. But, yeah, a couple more shots here. It looks like that was a Lithnar's last shot. Did some good damage. But Malagor is still alive with about 600 HP, so I don't know. I think the High Elves are pretty much done for here. We'll see. Critical army losses are just so close at this point. He's going to have to be super careful. Losing this unit of Reaver archers might trigger critical army losses here. Let's watch the leadership on Lithnar and this Life Mage here. Wow, no, they're still fighting. Wow, that's mighty impressive, all things considered. I don't think they're going to be able to take it back, but we'll see. Losing this Life Mage has got to do it. Yeah, that's going to lead to critical army losses right there. And it will be GG. So, yeah, it was a close one. The High Elves were just about able to bring it back there. I do think losing out that Ithilmar Chariot on the Minotaurs in the late game, you know, if he had been able to draw out the Minotaurs, like had feinted the charge rather than committing there, then he could potentially draw the infantry away, maybe get a good charge through, surround the Minotaurs with the Reavers. I think that would have been the only way to come back there, but regardless, Lithnar not quite able to finish off there. Just not quite enough ammo to finish off Malagor, and I have Morslib obviously just pulling back out of his range. Was a pretty tough situation, but a big thanks to Loopy for submitting that one. Losing out on the Silver Helms was a little bit tough as well, but the Reaver play was excellent there. 79 kills, a couple XP chevrons here, 39, 50, 53 on the regular Reavers. Personally, I'm a big fan of the price decrease on the regular Reavers. I think it makes them a lot more palatable to take. 49 kills on Lithnar himself. As for Damon here, yeah, the Cygor summons on Malagor, honestly, I don't think were worth it. I think he probably would have got better value from Malagor just from taking either damage spells or the buff that Lore of Wild has access to, Mantle of Garok, an extremely powerful buff, especially on things like Minotaurs. Personally, I'm also not the biggest fan of Minotaurs with shields, without shields. Either the regular variant or with great weapons. We can talk a little bit about this. I mean, obviously he won, so who am I to criticize his build, but just to sort of optimize things a little bit here. Whoops, that's not where I wanted to go at all. Custom battle. Here we go. So, Beastmen, just to kind of point something out about Minotaurs, and I do make this point frequently on various Discords and in various videos and so on, so you guys may have heard it before, but let's just compare the three Minotaur variants real quick, and you'll notice something about the one with shields. They all have the same weapon strength. Obviously, the Great Weapon does have a pretty significant bonus versus large of 28. Remember, that applies to both the weapon strength and melee attack. That being said, the Minotaurs with shields have more armor. They have 10 more armor, which makes a huge difference, believe it or not, when a unit has this low of an amount of armor. They also have a 55% missile block chance, which again, because they're low armor units, they are very vulnerable to missiles, making the shield invaluable here. And the other big change is they have much better melee defense. 46 melee defense means that just in general, these guys are going to take a lot less damage than your other variants of Minotaurs. Again, the same 110 weapon strength. Granted, they don't have that bonus versus large, but they'll still do just fine against enemy heavy cavalry. They've still got the blood greed and so on, so yeah, personally, I would say almost always bring the shields, but, I mean, Damon ended up winning there, so he still played with the great weapons very well, certainly. There were a few situations where they could have got caught out, where he pulled them back to safety, you know, let them sit back. In that situation, you almost would benefit from having the Butchers of Kalkengard specifically, because when you pull them back like that, they can regenerate their HP passively, right? But they are a little bit more expensive than the Minotaurs with great weapons, coming in at 1,700, so personally, I'm a big fan of these guys. A full-on 60 melee defense above the regiment, above the regular version because of the Regiment of Renown status. But yeah, again, big thanks to submitting. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.